Ian Watkins is one of the most disgusting predators in human history. He used his status as the singer of the popular emo band Lost Prophets to manipulate women into allowing him access to their children. Ian was sentenced to 35 years in prison in the UK for his crimes, but this morning he was murdered in one of the most brutal prison attacks in UK history. Buckle up, everyone, because we're going in hard. Listen, everybody, I know that I said we're going in hard, and that sounded a little bit sus, but I gotta be real with y'all. It was accurate. I'm bricked up right now. The fact that this dude was taken off of the planet so that nobody has to share oxygen with him anymore, and that it was done in such a brutal fashion, absolutely has me aroused. This is what I live for. This prison justice that happened this morning is my I told you so. Because 2 years ago, in 2023, when he was kidnapped, held hostage inside of a cell by 3 other inmates, beaten for hours, and stabbed repeatedly, I told you guys that this would happen. Well, guess what, y'all? Today, I was proved correct.
Singer Ian Watkins, who was jailed for child sex offences, has been killed in an attack in prison. The former Lost Prophets singer, who was convicted in 2013, was attacked in Wakefield prison this morning. Our correspondent Alice Porter joins us now. What are the police saying, Alice?
Well, we understand this happened earlier this morning by a member of somebody at the prison who attacked Ian Watkins. Now, violence in prisons is, of course, very commonplace, but an attack like this that it resulted in a murder, in a death, is actually incredibly rare. But we understand this is not the first time he's been attacked. He was stabbed back in 2023, not fatally, and clearly that has changed this time, where we understand, according to sources, that a knife was used in this attack this morning. Now, we have got a statement from West Yorkshire Police, who say at 9:39 a.m. this morning, police were called by staff at HMP Wakefield reporting an assault on a prisoner. Emergency services attended and the man was pronounced dead at the scene a short time later. Detectives from the homicide and major inquiry team are investigating, and inquiries remain ongoing at the scene. Now, we understand that the prison went into a lockdown immediately after this attack. Now, it was 2013 that Ian Watkins, the former Lost Prophets singer, was sentenced for a string of child sex offences, 13 offences, including the attempted rape of a baby. So he certainly would have been a high-profile prisoner, partly because of his fame. He was the lead singer in the Welsh band Lost Prophets, which sold millions of albums around the world, but he also would have been vulnerable to being targeted because of the horrific crimes that he committed, and paedophiles are very vulnerable to being attacked in prison. And unsurprisingly, Ian Watkins, who was sentenced back in 2013 for a string of sexual offences against children, would have been very much a target for any other inmates in the prison.
Now, HMP Wakefield is one of the most violent prisons in the UK. It is where they house the absolute worst of the worst offenders. It has been named Monster Mansion by the people of the UK because it's where they send absolute creatures, the people who have the most heinous and violent crimes. And even amongst these, Ian Watkins stood out as somebody who was so depraved and horrific that he needed to be dispatched from this planet. But what was it about Ian Watkins that made him so particularly disgusting and evil? Well, first of all, it was his choice of preferred victim. He liked infants, literal babies, and one of his charges is for what he did to one of them. They also found 27 terabytes of child explicit images, aging from the ranges of 2 to 14, as well as bestiality images and videos. This was so much for the police to be able to process. His 27 terabytes was bigger than the police's database, and they had to go out and get new equipment to be able to process all of this. Even after he was given this lengthy prison sentence, he continued to try to groom young women that for some reason decided that they wanted to write him and come visit him into sending him images of their children. After the 2023 kidnapping, hostage, assault, stabbing incident with Watkins, where 3 other inmates ended up going to the hole for what they did to him, I knew right then and there that his days were numbered. And this morning, when he got up to leave his cell for breakfast, somebody was lying in wait. They ambushed him. They grabbed him from behind, got a hold of his hair, and they slit his throat trying to saw his head off in front of correctional officers and inmates alike. These people were interviewed and they said it was the most brutal thing that they had ever seen in their lives. They tried to save Watkins, but there was absolutely no way. He was pronounced dead on scene. And now the world doesn't have to deal with this demon ever again. Now, I think that there are some people who have a more honed intuition, a sixth sense, when they're confronted by somebody who is inherently evil inside. And I think that Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park was one of those people. So I want to play you this clip of Ian Watkins talking about how him and Chester did not get along.
I remember when we were opening for
Lincoln Park.
Yeah, the singer of Lincoln Park is a fucking tool as well.
You're not the first person I've heard say that.
He's a
The rest of the band are nice.
The rest of the band are really, really cool, but that singer is a fucking tit.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's just an idiot. He's an idiot.
Yeah, or maybe Chester could just smell the diapers on your fucking breath and sense the evil that lived where your soul should have been. But either way, Ian Watkins is not here on planet Earth with any of us anymore, and I couldn't be any happier about that. And I couldn't be any happier that prison justice actually finally kicked in, and that not only did this dude live through over a decade and a half of suffering and anguish and being beaten and stabbed and kidnapped and talked shit to, but now in the end, he's never ever gonna see the streets to be able to hurt another child or literal fucking infant ever again. And when we find out exactly who it is that did this, I want to let you know the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check their record to see what crimes they were there for. And as long as they weren't there on some really heinous shit, I'm going to put money on their books. Because they're going to spend some time in the hole. They're going to get new charges for probably first-degree murder. And it's definitely going to add time to their sentence if they weren't already serving life that they did this. That they killed Ian Watkins. And if they're not some horrific monster themselves, I'm gonna make sure that they get some honey buns, some soups, some whatever the fuck they want. Because I appreciate the work that they did here today. But what do y'all think about this? Let me know down in the comments. And until the next one, it's always one love, baby. Be good or be good at it.